Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison, and I am an educator at the St. Louis Zoo. And I am really excited to bring to you today Habitat Deserts, the fourth in our Habitat series. If you'd like to go back and watch information about the rainforest, grasslands, and the Arctic, we have those pre-recorded on our website. So a few things before we get started. First off, you may notice that I am wearing a mask. I am doing my part to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus, but because I am in my home and I'm not sharing space with anyone outside of my immediate family, I have pulled the mask down away from my face. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing a PowerPoint and we'll go over our community guidelines and then we will dive right into deserts. Give me just a moment to share my screen. I hope everyone's doing great this morning. Okay, so before we get started, if you have not located that chat box, it's either at the top or the bottom of your screen, go ahead and open that up, select to respond to all panelists and attendees, and let me know where you are today. We like to see where everyone is zooming in from. If you have a question during today's webinar, find that question and answer box, the Q&A box right next to the chat feature. So very often, sometimes questions can get lost in the chat, and I'd like to make sure that I can answer as many as I can by the end of today's webinar, and the Q&A box is the best place to put them. We do have a tech person behind the scenes helping me out, Connor. You might have seen him yesterday with Grossology. It was pretty gross, but some fascinating information. So he will be helping monitor the chat and the Q&A. And then we will have an enjoyment poll at the very end of today's webinar. And oh my gosh, I see all kinds of places coming in here. Rochester, Illinois, Chicago, St. Louis, cool. Okay, so next, just a reminder about our community learning standards. Please be respectful to each other in the chat. Make sure we're keeping our discussions in the chat and the Q&A relevant to today's webinar. And then also be cognizant of the fact that if Connor has asked you to modify your behavior in the chat, if maybe we're not being so respectful, you may be removed from the webinar. Don't foresee that being an issue, but just in case. Okay, all right, and I see already from Chesterfield, Granite City, and St. Louis. All right, well, welcome everyone. I hope you are excited to learn about one of, I think, the world's most unique habitats, and that is deserts. Not the tasty thing you eat after the end of a meal, but the habitat desert. Okay, so there are a lot of iconic animal species that we can think of when we think of deserts. But first, let's define what a desert is. Right, let's think about what exactly a desert is. So there are a few characteristics of deserts, no matter where we find them in the world. Right, they are often very hot. Right? I know the first thing I think of when I think of a desert is heat and lots of sun. Right, so hot in the desert. The animals that live there are survivors. Right? Deserts can be incredibly difficult places to live and exist, but animals and plants have found a way. So these are our super survivors in these habitats. And the one thing that really defines a desert is rainfall or precipitation, or really lack thereof. Deserts don't get a lot of rain. From my research, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can see this. From my research, it's kind of a range of what scientists consider the amount of rain or precipitation, some kind of water that forms from the sky, either as rain or snow, as to what define a desert. But from what I found, it's about 10 inches a year is how much rain some deserts get, or less than. So this string is 10 inches long. That's as much rain or less than this than some deserts get in an entire year. If we compare that to Missouri, where I am, Missouri averages about 41 inches of rain a year. So that's this much rain. We're still going. Right. That's much, much more rain. Now, some deserts may get more than 10 inches in a year, depending on where they are in the world. And some deserts may get a lot less than maybe even an inch. The hottest places in the world, the hottest temperatures on planet Earth have been recorded in deserts. The record that I found was from 1913, and it was recorded in Death Valley, which is in California, so that's here in the United States, and it was 134 degrees Fahrenheit. That is steamy. If I think about a really hot St. Louis day that may be 90 degrees with our humidity and our heat index could feel like over 100 degrees, that's even hotter than that. And the coldest temperatures on Earth have also been found in deserts. And that was minus 128 degrees Fahrenheit in Antarctica in about 1983. And that's without wind. That's just was the air temperature. So deserts can be extreme places to survive if you're an animal, which is why those animals that we saw pictured earlier are survivors. So let's go back to my PowerPoint and we'll look at some more pictures. And actually, I've already got a question for you this morning. We've got a poll. So I want to know, true or false, right? True means you agree with the statement. False means you disagree with the statement. There are 4 main types of desert in the world. Okay, so most of you are saying true. We do think there are 4 main types of deserts in the world. Well, you would be correct. There are 4 types of deserts in the world. So we have hot and dry deserts. That's the most deserty kind of desert, I think. When I think of a desert, that's the kind I think of. There are semi-arid deserts. So this means that they may get a little bit more rain than a really, really hot desert. There are coastal deserts, like in South America and Africa. So that's that green that we see here. That pretty teal color, coastal deserts. And there are also cold deserts. And cold deserts can be deserts that you find in high elevations, like in the mountains, or in our polar regions. So like the Arctic and the Antarctic. Pretty cool. Good job, guys. All right, so this is our map, a better map, I think, than the last one of where we find deserts in the world. And so as we can see, they are in every continent. Are a lot of different kinds of subspecies, is what we call them, of ostrich. But the ostrich, specifically the red-necked ostrich, lives in the Sahara. Now, just like with all animals, they need water to survive, right? Food, water, shelter, and space, those 4 big things. Ostriches, the way that their bodies are, they can get all of the water that they need from the food that they eat. So if they can't find water, they just get it from their food. I know sometimes if I'm feeling thirsty, maybe I will eat an orange, right? We also get water from our food, but ostriches can do it a lot better. These are the largest living birds. So they can be up to 9 feet tall, which is just absolutely massive, and weigh about as much as 2 adult humans. So between 200 and 320 pounds. These are massive birds. They can also run really, really fast if they need to. Since they don't fly, right, their feathers are nice and fluffy, which can help keep them cool in the desert. They need to be really, really fast if they have to run away from a predator. So our ostrich is our first desert survivor from the Sahara. Okay, let's see if you guys can answer another question for me. And that question is, what is the largest desert on Earth? And I do have some options for you. What is the largest desert on Earth? What do you think? We can guess from these what's written here. So you can guess the Antarctic desert, the Kalahari, the Sahara, the Arabian Desert, the Arctic Desert. Go ahead and type it in the chat. The Great Basin Desert. Which one is the largest desert on Earth? The Gobi? All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is Antarctic. Right, so looking at the map, the entire continent of Antarctica is a desert. That's the Arctic desert. So this is our next desert we're going to talk about and think about through the eyes of our next desert survivor. So Antarctica is a frozen desert. It's a cold desert. And this is one of those places that receives very little precipitation, very little water falling from the sky. They get less, this continent gets less than half of an inch a year, right? Even though it's covered in ice, there's not really anything else that's added to that ice. So let's see what our next mystery animal, our next desert survivor could be. Here we go, clue number 1. And type in the chat what animal you think this could be. We did pretty good with the last one. Here's our next clue. And our last one. A moment to think about that. I see a few guesses for penguin coming in. And it is a penguin, a king penguin. So king penguins are one of the many species of penguins that can make Antarctica and the area around Antarctica home. And these animals are survivors as well, right? They have to lay an egg, hold it on their feet, keep that egg nice and warm, wait until the chick hatches, and then keep that little baby chick warm until it's big enough, like our little trio of penguins that I have pictured here, for them to move out from underneath the feet and be able to produce enough of their own body heat to stay warm. Now, penguin feathers are really, really special, and they're a big reason why these animals can live in Antarctica. The way penguin feathers lay on the body, they kind of interlock with one another. So it's like my fingers are interlocked right now. They're between each other, and that helps trap their body heat closer to their body so it doesn't really leave their body very much. It's like when we put on a warm winter coat to keep us warm. And those feathers and the oil that they can produce and put on top of their feathers prevents their skin from getting wet when they need to go out to the ocean and fish and then bring back those bellies full of fish to feed their babies later. These kinds of penguins will also huddle in close to one another to share body heat, and they may also take turns being on the inside and the outside. So it's kind of like, okay, I've been on the inside for a little bit, I'm nice and warm. You on the outside, you're probably real cold, so come on in and get nice and warm too. So penguins are desert animals, not something we usually think of, but they are. All right, so here's our last desert we're going to talk about today, and that is the Sonoran Desert. This is the desert, one of them that is here in the United States, and has the iconic saguaro cactus, right? When I think of a cactus, I think of the big one with the big arms, and that's where these cacti are found. So let's see what kind of survivor lives in the Sonoran Desert. Here's clue number 1. And I only gave you 2 clues with this one. So here's our other clue. What could this animal be? Kind of desert survivor. All right, are you ready? Time for the big reveal. This is called a Western Chuckwalla. It's a kind of lizard, much like a Gila monster. And this is one species of reptile that makes the Sonoran Desert home. I particularly think that these little lizards are pretty cute. They look kind of chubby. And I don't know why they look chubby, but they are. So Western Chuckwallas, these are lizards that are active mainly during the day. Since they are a reptile, they need to make sure that they get all of the heat that their body needs from their surroundings. So they may sit on top of a rock or out in the sunshine in the desert to warm their bodies up and get ready to hunt their favorite foods like leaves, fruits, and flowers. The occasional insect, but these guys are primarily plant eaters. And then if it gets too hot in the desert, they might retreat underneath a rock or in a burrow that an animal has made to help cool down their bodies so that they don't overheat, since they can't sweat like us. Okay, so that was a lot, but I have one more special surprise for you all. We have a surprise desert guest that will be joining us this morning. And I think you guys are really, really going to enjoy it. So my friend Tiffany is going to help me out. And Tiffany, is our surprise guest ready for their big debut?
He is. Hi, everyone. So I'm another educator, Tiffany Evans, and this is Bosk. He is my pet bearded dragon. So he is your special surprise guest today. So in the wild, bearded dragons live in semi-arid and rocky desert regions of Australia. They have specialized adaptations to survive in this habitat, and adaptations are things that animals have and do to stay safe and get what they need. A bearded dragon's color and pattern helps them blend into their surroundings and stay safe from predators. They can also puff out and darken their neck scales. It makes them appear bigger and intimidating, and that's why they're called a bearded dragon. Having rough and dry scales all over their body is going to help protect them. And around their neck, you might be able to see it on him at the base of his neck on the side and on the sides of his body. Bearded dragons have pointy scales. Now this tricks predators into thinking that those scales are really, really sharp and dangerous. But actually, they're not. They're really soft. But the predators don't know that, so they trick them. It's really cool. Bosk was just eating some breakfast, so we'll see if he decides to eat some more. Bearded dragons are cold-blooded, so just like other reptiles. And that means that their body temperature is going to be the same as their surroundings. They can warm themselves up in the sun, but if the temperature gets too hot, then they'll go under logs or in rock crevices to cool down in the shade so that they can make sure that they're not getting too hot. Now, if you're interested in having a bearded dragon as a pet, because I'm sure you're looking at Bosk and he's absolutely adorable, and I agree, he was actually a rescue. So he is around 4 years old. I got him last September. And he's, like I said, he's a rescue. But if you're interested in getting a pet bearded dragon, please do your research, because just like with any animal, you need to research exactly what they need and if you're able to give them what they need. So with bearded dragons, you're going to need to replicate their natural habitat. And the biggest part of that is making sure that they are kept at the exact temperatures that they would need to be super healthy and happy. So that is the bearded dragon surprise guest today. I hope you enjoyed seeing him. And I know he doesn't show his excitement, but I know on the inside he's really excited. This is his debut. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Back to you, Allison.
Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing Bosk with all of us. He is super cute, and it looks like he had a pretty delicious breakfast there too. All right, so we're going to wrap up with just one more thing about deserts, and then I will see if you all have any questions for me. So deserts, despite the fact that they can be kind of harsh in their climate, do need some help and some protection. And the St. Louis Zoo, we are helping our desert habitats. So we have a wild care center called the Saharan Wildlife Recovery Center. And this center does amazing work with just all kinds of fantastic Saharan species, and 3 of them are pictured here today. So going from left to right, like in the direction that we read, we have the scimitar horned oryx, a fennec fox, and then an addax. What's really amazing and probably the best thing that the center has done is with that scimitar horned oryx. This species actually went extinct in the wild back in the around, let's see here, I've got the exact date because I want to make sure I tell it to you correctly, in the 1980s. And it was because that places like zoos had these animals within the zoos that they were able to help save the species. And through responsible breeding programs like a species survival plan, we're able to make sure that a captive population could be maintained within zoos and eventually get re-released back into the wild. And that's exactly what happened in 2016. Around 70 individuals were released into the wild, and it's now estimated that there are over 100 in the wild today. So because of places like your St. Louis Zoo and the Saharan Wildlife Recovery Center, animals are making a comeback in habitats, which is fantastic. And there are lots of things that we could do to help. Conserving your own resources is the best way to go. So making sure you're turning off your water when you're brushing your teeth, turning off a light when you're exiting a room. All of those small things that we can do here can help animals all over the world. So let's see if you have any questions. I see that I have a few, and I will do my best to answer as many as I can. Okay, let's see here. Oh, where does the emperor penguin live? They live in the Antarctic desert. So they are also an Antarctic desert species. And are the western chuckwallas a type of lizard? They are a type of lizard. They're about this big or so. We do have western chuckwallas at the zoo in the herpetarium. And we are open again, so you can go visit those animals. So what is Bosk eating this morning? Tiffany, what is Bosk eating this morning?
I'm going to go ahead and put the camera back on him. So Bosk is eating a spring mix salad topped with waxworms. Now, the waxworms are a special treat because they're considered a little bit fatty for bearded dragons. So that is definitely not a main staple in his diet. His main protein is actually going to come from crickets. But that's one of the really important parts about when you get a pet is making sure they're going to have a very healthy diet. So it's really important he gets protein from crickets and that he's going to get a wide variety of veggies to keep him happy and healthy. I see he's kind of eyeballing some right now, thinking he already ate some, but yeah, I see you checking it out. But that is what he is eating this morning.
Delicious. I think maybe I'll pass on the waxworms, but everything in the crickets, everything else sounds pretty good. All right, what is your favorite desert animal at the zoo? Ooh, what is my favorite desert animal at the zoo? I do really love penguins because they're just a lot of fun to watch. But I also really like the addax. I think they have beautiful colors. They have these bright white coats in the summer, and then they have a little patch of dark fur on their head. I think it looks like they're wearing a wig. Just think they're really, really beautiful. So, ooh, is it safe to be in a desert for so long? For humans, since we're not adapted, our bodies aren't adapted to being in the desert. If you visit a desert, because they can be fantastic places to check out, you do want to make sure that you are paying attention to your body. So, and have lots and lots of water with you. Because our bodies aren't good at conserving water like a lot of desert animals. And some food with you too. And some things you might want to pay attention to if you visit a desert habitat is actually whether or not if you're sweating. If you're sweating, that's great. Your body is functioning normally. It's trying to keep you cool. Also means you need to keep drinking that water. If you stop sweating, that could mean your body's getting way too hot and you're not functioning the way that you should. So you need to find some place, some shade, stop moving around, drink that water. If I were visiting a desert, I might bring some instant ice packs with me so that if I notice if I do stop sweating, because maybe I'm dehydrated or I'm getting too hot, this is going to sound kind of silly. You can break that ice pack and put it under some place like your armpit to help keep your body cool and cool it down in a safe way. All right, and our last question is the Saharan desert expanding or shrinking? So a lot of desert habitats are expanding through something called desertification, and that is due to climate change. So if plants have been removed from an area through habitat loss or overgrazing. The soil isn't holding on to the dirt as well. It's not holding on to moisture as well. And weather patterns can change too. So areas might be seeing less rain than they have in the past. So that question could be a webinar in and of itself. But definitely check out the zoo's resources on our webpage for more information. So like I said, you can come visit us again at the zoo. We're so excited to welcome everyone back, but do be sure, in order to visit the zoo, you need to reserve a free time to come see us. And you can do that up to a week in advance of your planned visit. You can do that through the website, or you can call the zoo. While you're at the zoo, we do ask that you help us prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our community by wearing a face mask if you are over the age of 9 and do not have any underlying health issues that would prevent you from doing so, washing those hands as often as you can, and maintaining 6-foot social distancing. That is about 1 alpaca's length apart from each other. So thank you all for joining me this morning. I had a great time. Please take our enjoyment poll, and we hope to see you around the zoo. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. Bye.